Welcome back to another episode of Stand on Guard. We're standing on guard for you, and that includes fiscal sanity, which we're not going to have much more of in this country the longer Mark Carney is Prime Minister. He wants digital currency. And this is one of the reasons we have Kyle Kemper on the show today to talk about cryptocurrency, to talk about Bitcoin, what it means, where it comes from. If you don't know anything about cryptocurrency, you're at the right place because Kyle is going to walk us through this today and he's going to walk me through it because I don't know a whole lot about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. But we'll be back momentarily with a brief news update and then we'll bring Kyle right on to the show. And by the way, I'm coming at you live from our nation's capital in Ottawa. I'm David Krayden.
The Prime Minister lied and his minions continue to lie.
We need political change. But we also need the resolve to resist. Yes, please like the station. Subscribe if you haven't. And if you haven't, I don't know why you haven't, but resubscribe if you. Sometimes YouTube unsubscribes. Believe it or not, it happens. Yeah, happens a lot to me and other YouTubers who are trying to get to the truth. Just want to show you a brief clip. We are watching the events in Los Angeles, and a lot of you have been critical of me because I criticized Donald Trump over Elon Musk and Doge and this feud they've been having and the big beautiful bill. I think Trump is right on with bringing the National Guard to LA because this is chaos. Let's have a look here.
Here's Democrats LA City Council member Hernandez telling protesters, rioters really, to escalate their tactics.
They know how quickly we mobilize. That's why they're changing tactics. Because community defense works and our resistance has slowed them down before. And if they're escalating their tactics, then so are we. When they show up, we gotta show up even stronger.
And LA Mayor Karen Bass also defended the protest and trumpeted LA's sanctuary city status.
We are going to fight for all Angelenos, regardless of when they got here, whether they have papers or not. We are a city of immigrants, and this impacts hundreds of thousands of Angelenos.
You know, it was only last year when Democrat...
I'll leave it at that because I want to get into this interview with Kyle, but you want to know what's going to happen in Canada because of our open borders policy, because about 1 million new immigrants in the last year, because Mark Carney doesn't care any more than Justin Trudeau. Have a look at what's happening in LA. Not a single American flag. These are flags from all over the world, especially Mexico. This is an invasion. That's what's happening. That's what's going to be happening in Canada because we have been letting it happen for decades. So that's all I'm going to say about that right now. And without further ado, this is Kyle Kemper. Kyle, welcome back to Stand on Guard. You've been on the show 2 or 3 times, and of course we've always talked about your good brother, but I don't think we'll touch too much on that today. But you are an expert on cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. I'm not. That's one of the reasons I wanted you to come on the show today. A lot of our viewers are saying, I don't know anything about it. How can cryptocurrency help me with the Canadian dollar potentially being devalued by Mark Carney? He's said that in the past. He wants to devalue the US dollar as well. He wants to affect it in a way that helps his European friends. So cryptocurrency is an alternative to the Canadian dollar, and I guess as well to gold and silver, which a lot of people are investing in right now because the price keeps going up. But can you walk us through where cryptocurrency came from, a little bit of the history behind it, and why is it a good idea to invest in right now?
Hey, David, great to be on. Certainly, I can. I'll start by just saying, the reason that I got, really motivated and involved with Bitcoin was because, to me, I had the wool pulled off my head around the central banks and understanding, who the men behind the curtain were, and how those, if I think there was a famous, it was either Rockefeller or Rothschild quote saying, "I care not who the people elect so long as I control the money," or something along those lines. And it really spoke to the root of the systemic challenges that we have, is when you have central banks being able to print money on their own accord, they can inflate the dollar and make those around them incredibly wealthy, while everybody else becomes effectively poor and poorer. Inflation is a silent tax on the people. And so it was really Ron Paul back in 2008 that first awakened me to this whole movement, this alternative, financial system, and understanding the toxicity of the central banking fiat system. And I became very interested in gold. And one of the challenges of gold, though, was its function as an actual currency, being able to buy and sell and pay, and utilize gold in that form and fashion. And I looked at digital gold as an opportunity. And then in 2010, in late 2009, Satoshi Nakamoto released the Bitcoin white paper, and then the Bitcoin network kicked off. I saw it very early. I think it was about March 2010 was my first impression of it. It didn't even have a value, but I dismissed it. I didn't quite understand it. And it wasn't until 2013, when I was working in Ottawa at my family's restaurant, that someone came in and started talking about, Bitcoin and how they had a bunch. And I started just asking questions and more questions. And then I had my, people call it your orange pill moment, when you get it and you realize, wow, okay, this actually is very, very interesting. And it can change the entire structure of finance. And, we now have, and for me, what I realized was this was I believe then, I still believe now, that this is the scalpel to the cancer that is the Federal Reserve and central banking system that dominates the planet. So basically, since 2013, I focused a lot of my energy on driving Bitcoin awareness and Bitcoin adoption, teaching people how to safely and securely enter the space, how to hold Bitcoin, different strategies to use it and understand how to safely use it. Some of the basic kind of security tenets around it. And, one of the things I'd love to do with you, David, is just kind of go through some questions and ultimately get you set up, because, I akin it to, to like email. You can spend a lot of time discussing email and the complexities and how it works, and going from the mail, the letter age, into the email age, a very big transformation. And emails kind of made letters obsolete. There's still purpose in letters. They still function. They're great, but the email was much more effective. And that is the way I would kind of view Bitcoin in relation to traditional central bank fiat cash. It's a wholesale upgrade. And instead of trying to understand the way that email works in the background, it's best to really understand it, and its value is just to actually receive some and send one, to receive an email and to send an email. And they're like, oh, okay, wow, I start to get this. And the same thing with Bitcoin. When you receive some Bitcoin and then you send some Bitcoin, and you shouldn't kind of understand, oh, okay, wow, this is very interesting. It's like digital cash. It certainly is.
Well, I'm already getting people asking here. So why is Bitcoin so expensive? Is it truly expensive, or is this really all relative?
It's all relative. I mean, Bitcoin is so. Let's understand some of the basics of where price comes from. Price comes from the supply versus the demand. When there's more demand versus supply, the price will generally go up. Now, with Bitcoin, it seems expensive. Bitcoin is $107,000 per coin. When I started in this space in 2013, it was about $120, per coin. Now, there's only ever going to be 21 million. So unlike the US dollar, which has no cap, or the Canadian dollar, which has no cap, meaning they can print it all the time. So the value of the dollar is always going up. That's why gold's price, one could say that big gold is very expensive, but Bitcoin has been going up in value because more people are desiring it and seeking it and choosing to invest in it and choosing to use it. And therefore, there's less of supply of it on the market. And the rate at which people are willing to sell their Bitcoin is getting higher and higher. So that's what drives the price up. And expensive is kind of a relative word, but the key thing is there's only 21 million Bitcoin. And understand as well that Bitcoin is very divisible. So there's 1.000000008 zeros in terms of how much a Bitcoin is. So you don't need $150,000 Canadian in order to participate in Bitcoin. I can literally send David right now. I can send him $5 worth of Bitcoin, and it'll be 0.00005 or something around there. Or
now you were suggesting people go to this app here, and I'm just showing it on the screen for a minute. But this is what I got when I got Edge Wallet. So you're suggesting people have a look at this, get the app.
That looks like Coinbase. That's not Edge Wallet. That's Coinbase Canada.
I get that. Here we go. Edge Wallet.
That is Amazon.
Okay. Let me see if I can.
There you go. That one. Edge.app. Yeah. If you click on
Edge.home. Okay.
So, and let me also break down. So this is Edge. So this allows you to. It's a very, very powerful, secure mobile wallet. I've known the founder Paul Puy since 2014. He has just been building, creating a safe and secure mobile storage unit. So you can download it onto your phone. Edge.app. The nice thing about Edge is it uses a username and password as opposed to writing down a bunch of words. In Bitcoin, there are these things called seed words, which are 12 or 24 words that will allow you to recreate your account should you lose them. And it's like a master password. So you need to be very careful with those. Now, Edge Wallet has, in my opinion, done one of the best jobs at maintaining this idea of self-custody. And this is a word you'll hear within Bitcoin is this notion of custody. And what custody means is who is in control of your coins. If you think about the way that you use dollars, you can either have cash that you have in maybe your wallet or in your safe. That means you are in control of that cash. Whereas if you keep your money in a bank, they are in control of it. And the same applies to Bitcoin and to cryptocurrencies in general. If you can have a wallet that you're in full control of, for example, Edge Wallet. Edge Wallet, you have your keys, your coins. When you store it with someone like Coinbase or a Kraken or a Gemini or Bybit, there's many different kind of exchanges out there or places that allow you to easily buy and sell Bitcoin. The thing about these places is they hold on to your keys. They are the custodians, and you hold an account credit with them for your Bitcoin. So in that case, it's not your keys and it's not your Bitcoin.
Question here from Lorna Lee O'Brien. Do you prefer Bitcoin over gold and silver?
Personally, I do prefer Bitcoin over gold and silver. I mean, I really like gold and silver. I especially like silver. Silver has all sorts of incredible properties, and frankly, gold does as well. And I think, it's worth, like, if you're in a position of wealth and accumulating wealth and you're looking for a good savings vehicle. Now, I should also preamble that this is not financial advice. This is financial wisdom. I'm not a financial advisor as well. I just want to say that. Now, in the long term, gold and silver have been an incredible store of value. Back in Roman times, 1 ounce of gold would get you an excellent full set of clothing, from the boots to the hat, to the shirt, the jacket, the pants, everything. And guess what? That applies today as well. An ounce of gold holds its value. Whereas $1, if you had $1 or $100 back in, say, 1920, $100 would have accumulated you a lot of stuff. That same $100 will barely buy a bag of groceries today. So if you had kept that $100 bill underneath your mattress, for the last 125 years, or 105 years, it would still be worth $100. Whereas if you invested it into gold, it would hold its purchasing power, and it would be worth probably the equivalent of $10,000 or more.
Want to say, I'm seeing a few comments from people saying, isn't Kyle related to Mark Carney? No, that is BS. I don't know where that got started or how it got started after Carney became Liberal leader. No, he's not related to me. You talked about central banks.
I'm not related to Mark Carney, and it was just a rumor that ran around because Mark Carney's, I think his mother was Margaret Verlee Kemper. So
yeah.
Like, oh, Kemper. If there's one Kemper, that means all other Kempers must be, related. But there's many Kempers in this world, and there's no relation.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. You are related to Justin Trudeau, but philosophically, you're poles apart, and I think people should know that. You talked about central banks at the beginning here and the men behind the curtain. You find it ominous? We have a central banker now who's get back to Mark Carney. We have a central banker who is now the Prime Minister of Canada. He is part of this globalist club. He's one of the men behind the curtain, and he's recently announced in a strong borders bill. And I've got to mention this because the Conservative Party of Canada is silent about this bill, and this bill is going to authorize the government through the RCMP and Canada Post to open our mail, to survey what we do on the internet, and to ban transactions in cash above $10,000. I think this is the beginning of digital currency in Canada. This is what Mark Carney's been talking about his entire adult life. He loves digital currency because it's going to stop the money laundering. It's going to stop organized crime. Well, of course, that's nonsense. The organized crime is always 2 steps ahead of the government and 2 steps ahead of Mark Carney. Do you think Mark Carney wants, and we'll get back to more Bitcoin in a second, but I wanted to address this because a lot of people are concerned about this Bill C2, this strong borders bill, which has got all of these poison pills in it, and the Conservative Party won't talk about it.
Am I concerned about it? Absolutely. And, one of the things is we already have digital currency. They're going after cash. But all of the money that's like in our bank account, there's no corresponding stack of cash that represents it. The thing is, when it's in our bank accounts, it's underneath this custodial arrangement, as I mentioned before. And as we saw with the truckers, the government can dictate to the banks to freeze accounts, to drain accounts, to dock accounts. So we already have digital currency, and they already have a deep level of control, and they're coming after cash, and it's also within the realm of possibility for them to try and outlaw Bitcoin. Now they can declare it. There's nothing they can do. If you hold Bitcoin, there's nothing they can do to actually, they don't have any power to unilaterally take your Bitcoin away from you. They could show up to your door. They could ask you to tell you your, provide you your seed words and pull it from you. There is that amount. There is that element, and that's why it's important to understand the security. And using something like Edge Wallet, you can securely do that. One of back to the Bitcoin equation is this notion of these 12 words that you can keep secretly in your head. Or you can have written down, or you can distribute, to back up. What I liked about the idea of Bitcoin is you could go from one country to another with nothing, with absolutely being completely naked, and get a phone or get access to a computer, recreate your wallet, and have access to your wealth again. So there's a sense, and the key thing is that like what Bitcoin solved was this notion of digital scarcity. You cannot duplicate, you can't counterfeit a Bitcoin. You cannot spend the same Bitcoin twice. And that's because of the blockchain distributed nature and this system that's called proof of work that makes sure, I'll try and keep it really simple here, but all around the world, there's thousands of computers that are called nodes that are holding on to copies of the whole blockchain. That's got all the transactions ever processed. And they all hold the exact same copy. And if someone has a different copy, if it's different at all, if one thing's different in it, it won't be accepted into the network. And every 10 minutes, there's basically, for simplicity's sake, every 10 minutes, there's an update with the transactions that occurred in the last 10 minutes, and everybody agrees on it. And there's a system of computers out there that are working really hard towards solving a problem, and they get rewarded with new Bitcoin for solving this problem. That's what Bitcoin mining is, and it's a little bit more complicated. But again, in order to use Bitcoin and participate and benefit from the opportunity of this network, you don't need to understand all the nuance of it. But I'm sure you have many more questions as well, David. So
we have people asking questions. I want to make one thing clear to people. We've got a very skittish audience today. I'm not telling you to buy Bitcoin, people. I'm not telling you what to do with your money. Neither is Kyle. I'm not a financial advisor, and Kyle just told you he's not either. He's somebody with experience in this area. We're talking about this because Canada is on the precipice of economic disaster. We could be sliding into a Great Depression. We could be heading towards complete digital currency. We could be going towards a state that doesn't allow cash, a cashless society where the government knows what you're buying, knows what you're paying money for, knows what your interests are, and is monitoring you daily. That's why we're talking about this, because we need options. And if you think Canada is just going to keep going the same way it always has, status quo, no, it's not. Mark Carney has authoritarian designs on this country. That's why he wanted to be prime minister. That's why he's in power right now. So, a question for you here. I remember when Pierre Poilievre first became opposition leader, he was every time he raised the question about finances in the House of Commons during question period to Chrystia Freeland at the time, the then finance minister, she never answered the question. She kept saying, it's a good thing we didn't invest in crypto and Bitcoin when the leader of the official opposition suggests we do because it's taken a dive. Did it actually take it? Was she talking nonsense, or did it actually take a dive during that period?
Well, I mean, it depends when you mention it. So Pierre did mention, I think, it probably around like 30 or 40,000 as a good tool. And Pierre's a Bitcoiner. He understands Bitcoin. He has Bitcoin. He understands why it makes sense. I'm really frustrated with Pierre, though. He didn't talk at all during the election about Bitcoin or the fact that Mark Carney was a central banker. Didn't talk about it. He never held his feet to the fire on that. And the fact that the conservatives aren't talking about this further financial surveillance, it's rotten. I do not believe our government and the system of government represents the people in any way. And unfortunately, the people do not have much opportunity to participate in our democracy other than making a check for compromised parties every 4 years. So I'll say that. But Pierre had said he liked Bitcoin, and then the price went down, and then he got attacked on it. And the media kind of kept coming after him. But now, if you look back, the price, I think, is probably up 3 times, at least 2 times above what it was at that price. So, that same argument won't really work. And, and again, it's like people say, is it expensive to get in right now? Well, look, we're seeing at a large level, we're seeing massive adoption of this at the institutional level. So we're seeing, public companies start adding it to treasuries. We're seeing central banks start adding Bitcoin to balance sheet. I'm going to speak to just about Bitcoin at this point. And I also just want to mention to everybody, like, Bitcoin is different than all cryptos. There are a whole slew of other cryptocurrencies and digital currencies that were kicked off as a result of Bitcoin, but many of them do not share that, the same scarcity elements, the same monetary policy as Bitcoin. I'm not saying they're bad, but I'm saying, like, Bitcoin is special, is the top dog in the room, is the one that's seeing the most institutional investment, is the one that has an incredible amount of wealth within it. There's the ability for large value transfers, like at a global scale, to run on this network.
Looks, we got a question here or a comment more than a question from Sheridan Forbes, saying can we force people in the international set to accept Bitcoin, or can they refuse to accept that as payment?
Anybody anybody can choose to accept or not accept it. That's the simplest answer to that question. More and more, there is an underlying infrastructure to be able to enable transactions. So in there's global organizational groups. One of them is called FATF. Another one's group is called the OECD. That there's the IMF. There's the World Bank. There are these groups that that create the global regulatory involvement environment for financial transactions, oftentimes to prevent money laundering, oftentimes to enshrine their power and give them more control over the global financial system. Bitcoin breaks that system by enabling anybody to participate. Anyone can download a wallet. Obama famously said that Bitcoin is like having a Swiss bank in your pocket. I would add to it that it's not like having a Swiss bank account in your pocket. It's like having a Swiss bank in your pocket. You're in control. You have the ability with Edge Wallet. You can generate Bitcoin addresses. Anyone in the world, you can share that address and they can send Bitcoin to you. Nobody can stop that from happening. IMF can't stop that from happening. FATF can't stop that from happening. The banks cannot stop that from happening. It enables financial freedom. So when we saw the truckers have their bank accounts frozen out of political persecution and censorship, that cannot happen with Bitcoin. It's like, technically it cannot happen. Anybody can participate. And that is what's very intriguing and what's so powerful about Bitcoin, is that the transactions cannot be censored and accounts cannot be censored. So anybody can do it. So, but can someone choose not to accept Bitcoin? Absolutely. They can choose not to accept it. In Canada, it used to be, and in the States as well, it used to be that you had to accept US dollars. Like you absolutely had to. But now we're seeing a transition to the digital stuff where they're saying cash isn't accepted anymore. So you must use cards, which is now we are in central bank digital currency. It's already here, friends. There's not going to be some update or some new thing. It's already here. What happens if the internet shut down? Does not happen often, but it has happened. So if the internet shuts down, it depends. Where does the internet shut down? If the internet shut down on the entire planet for a prolonged period of time, when the internet came back on, Bitcoin would just kind of keep going. The internet shutting down, if you lose access to the internet, you're fine. Those words, your seed words, those 12 words, or inside a wallet like Edge, it keeps your key. You'll be able to to recreate your access.
We have hippie 17 saying XRP. I don't even know what the hell XRP is, but XRP will overtake Bitcoin. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I disagree with that. XRP, and I know lots of people that are very passionate about it. And XRP it's all the name for it is the Ripple network. It was a fantastically successful private coin launch. The founders of it, did quite well, and they've positioned themselves. The point of XRP is to create an alternative. Some are saying an alternative to the SWIFT network is to upgrade the banking rails, and it's very interesting because a lot of the people that support Ripple really are anti-authoritarians, but this is technology that they're hoping the whole banking sector will utilize and employ. So there is a little bit of, I don't know, I'm not sure if hypocrisy is the right word, but it's ironic a little bit. And there's been there is a very large marketing push, from a group of people, but I haven't actually seen it. I've used Ripple in the past, but it's not like I've used Bitcoin like through and through. I've used many of the cryptos, but I've chosen Bitcoin and for a reason, and it works, and it's big, and it's a big. But then again, that is someone's opinion and opinion of where it might go in the future, and they're fully free to have that. Wishing you luck.
Yeah, I think I have. No, what about? Here it is. Yeah, what about Trezor, Kyle? This will be the last question you have to answer. I just want to talk about.
I'm happy to go through all the questions too, because it's through question and answer. So what about Trezor? Can you send money as well? So Trezor, I think so Trezor is actually a hardware wallet. So there are, while you can have like Edge Wallet on your phone, you can also have these little hardware wallets. I don't know where mine is. Probably not the right answer. But it's a little device that securely keeps your money. So really, it's like an extra secure. They're called hardware wallets, and again, it's this notion of custody. And yes, you can send money from that when you plug it into your computer or you put it onto your phone, and you say where you want to send it to, and then you'll sign the transaction, on the little device.
Would you agree that the big money is buying billions of dollars of crypto?
Yes. I would agree that the big money has been buying billions of dollars of crypto right now, and they're continuing to. And we're seeing this institutional adoption take place now, where there's only so much of it. So as the demand pressure increases, the supply number, the price will just continue to increase, in my opinion, because there's only so much supply. Now, years ago, I talked to the Bank of Canada and encouraged them to buy Bitcoin. They kind of laughed at me. The Canadian pension plan. These guys, the Canadian pension plan, they're there to protect the value of Canadians. I told them, guys, here's an amount of Bitcoin that if you buy, you'll be insured against Bitcoin. You'll be good. They said it was too much of a reputational risk. Well, the cost now is about 10 times what it was then for them to do it, but they're going to start doing it. Now, again, you can you can hope and pray that the government has your back, or you can start taking responsibility for yourself and, work on securing your own land, securing your own seeds, securing your own gold, silver, and I would say Bitcoin as well. Bitcoin is a currency, is a store of value. It works excellently. You can use Bitcoin to simply own some and not touch it. Just treat it as an asset that will go up in time, which I really believe in the long term it's going to go up. It might go from it's at 150,000 Canadian. It might go to 100,000. I'd probably not, but I think it. Ultimately, many are saying it will go to the millions. And the sheer fact that the dollar is always going to go down kind of reinforces that. Now, should you go mortgage your house right now to buy Bitcoin? Some people would say yes. I would say no, you probably shouldn't do that, but you might want to consider taking a small amount of disposable income on a regular basis and purchasing Bitcoin and putting it into a savings vehicle. I would also consider setting up a wallet, receiving some Bitcoin, sending some Bitcoin, actually using it, testing it. Like if you have a friend that has Bitcoin, that has some Bitcoin and you don't have any, ask them, can I e-transfer you $20 of cash and you send me some Bitcoin, and let's see if they're down, and just go through that experience. Bitcoin can be banned by the gov. Just like they demanded that you could go to jail if you didn't give up your gold. Similarly, they banned alcohol, during the Prohibition time, but that didn't stop people. They can ban it, but we're seeing there's a lot of I don't think they will anymore. Like it's the cat is out of the bag. Gunpowder has been invented. They can't uninvent it at this point. President Trump, for example, a lot of his, he has an immense amount of gratitude and thanks to give to the crypto community for helping him get into office. The wealth and the power within the crypto industry, and the fact that a lot of the people in the crypto industry are at the policy tables now, I do not see any banning of Bitcoin. In the past, we've seen some, like China banned Bitcoin back in the day, but it didn't stick. Still, anybody can use it, and it will just create an underground economy until there's actually a until they unwind that poor policy. I think we're going to see the rise of more of these stable coins, but Bitcoin, as a solution. Bitcoin is a choice. Just like let me make this point. You were born a man or a woman, and you don't have a choice of that. In Canada, I was born a Canadian. The Canadian dollar was the currency that everybody used, that we have to use until Bitcoin and until this cryptocurrency, where now we have so many different choices. You can consciously choose how you want to receive value and store value. Yes, you're not going to be able to go to the gas station and pay with Bitcoin, right now, but I went to Steak and Shake the other day and paid directly with Bitcoin. So, that's a large fast food chain that is starting to adopt it. You can go buy gift cards for Uber, for Airbnb, for Amazon. You can get credit cards now that will sell directly from your Bitcoin, that will leverage and be collateralized against your Bitcoin. You can get loans for your Bitcoin. There is a whole, this really is this new decentralized financial industry platform, and it's here. And you can say, no, I'm not interested, or you can say it's a scam, or I just trust cash. But understand, when you say I trust cash, you're keeping your value in the central bank dollars, in the blood money that is the central bank dollars. And ultimately, it only goes down in value. Only. That's the one sure thing in this world, is that US dollars and Canadian dollars go down in value over time. Like, that is just an absolute, you might see a little bit of a tick maybe between the US dollar and the Canadian dollar this week, but in the long term, the real purchasing power, everybody knows it, goes down and down and down. So do not keep your money in cash underneath that, under your mattress or in your painting. Consider getting Bitcoin and acquiring a little bit of it, or getting some gold or some silver or some land, or and a lot of people don't have that and they're looking for it. And I'll also say, and that's one of the allures of cryptocurrency, is people think it's a bit of a casino and you can make a lot of money. And that certainly there's Solana, which is like a casino where there are coins being launched all the time that go up in value, but often just be very, very careful, because most people just lose their money. So, before going into the whole, crazy crypto world, consider just Bitcoin, starting with Bitcoin, accumulating some Bitcoin, understanding it, securing it, investing in yourself, investing in your knowledge, using it, investing in the understanding of how a wallet like Edge wallet works, or getting a Keep key or a Trezor or a Ledger, or one of these hardware wallets to secure your value. And then when you have Bitcoin and you're starting to accumulate it, you're going to want to have your secure backup. So in case something happens to you, you have instructions for somebody else, for, your children or your wife or your girlfriend, or, if something should happen to you, so that money doesn't get lost. Because if you are let's say you have $1 million worth of Bitcoin, and if nobody knows about that except for you, and you pass away and you don't have a backup of that money, it will always be there on the chain, but nobody will be able to benefit from the ownership of it. So that's why it's important to think about how, in the case of something, how would you transfer your keys or your funds to somebody else.
Yeah. Well, I think that was a fantastic dissertation. I've got a lot of stupid comments from people today. Everybody's an expert on crypto, but I confess I'm not. That's why that's why I wanted you on the show. I consider you a friend, and I love your analysis of U.S. and Canadian politics. And this is about open discussion, people. That's what the station is about. That's what the CBC won't allow, is open discussion. But I wanted to ask you a question. It's just,
well, here, before that, I'll also say, anybody post a Bitcoin address, and just to show you guys how this works, post a Bitcoin address. If one of them shows up in Krayden's chat here, the first one that shows up, I'll just send $10 worth of Bitcoin to, as an expression of showing how you can move cash, how this actually works. So anybody who's got Bitcoin, just post a Bitcoin address, and we'll actually do a little transaction, show you how it all works. Let's all literally just believe in the power of showing it. But there's no questions that are bad in this realm. And understandably, there's a lot of people that are jittery, especially when it comes to digital ID, when it comes to digitization, when it comes to the threat of the technocracy rising in power, when it comes into this AI age. With Bitcoin, with crypto, this is also money that AI can be using. It's very, we're in some very interesting times right now. And I encourage everybody to be critical, to not trust me, to not blindly trust whomever, to do your own research, but also to explore and to try. And self-determination. You can make up your own decision. If you choose Bitcoin, great. Go to a Bitcoin conference, explore, meet the people. They're incredible. We just had one in Vegas, 30,000 people. It's unbelievable to see. Back in 2013, we were like, we'd be hard pressed to get 20 people into a room together. Now you got 30,000 people. We're seeing, all the different statesmen, all the largest companies. We're seeing, it's incredible to see, and I would still say it's still early.
Well, it's still early. So, well, thank you for that. I hope somebody out there learned something. I did. There's a lot to learn. But while I've got you here, though, I wanted to ask you: do you think this feud between Donald Trump and Elon Musk? You think it was completely theatrical? That this was all about, I don't know what, distracting people? Or I was personally very disappointed with this big, beautiful bill. And I'm looking at Elon Musk and I'm saying, okay, he's found tens of billions, perhaps hundreds of billions of savings. And it's just overnight, it's gone with $1 trillion defense budget and a potentially $2 or $3 billion big, beautiful bill. So I can see why Elon Musk might be disappointed in the process here. And but I found the intensity of the argument on the internet, especially over X and True Social, to be so over the top that I was wondering, is there something else at play here? What did you think about it all?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I feel like it's theater. It seems like, it's a distraction. It might be, this might be a way for, Trump needed to push through the big, beautiful bill on behalf of the big Republicans and speak to it like that. And then Elon's opposition and, this distractive energy gets people fired up. And it also just brings them both back into the spotlight in a time when, people's political energies are kind of waiting. Like, they just want their eyes on them. They're energy vampires. They want you looking at them as much as possible. So this brings them both front and center again. And it also enables, and it might help reduce and slim down the big beautiful bill. And it also, again, it brings up a lot of the points which are important of why do you have these enormous bills. Like, this is one of the things that everybody's talked about. Why don't you just make smaller bills that are actually apportioned? Because you can't slip so much pork into it, and so much waste, and so much fraud, and so much corruptive spending. So ultimately, I think it's a good thing, but it also feels like grand theater, just like this whole riot situation in LA feels like grand theater as well. It seems like.
Well, I'll tell you, Kyle, I feel like I'm walking through a play that I've read the ending of right now here in Canada. I know how this is going to end. I feel like a lot of Germans felt at the end of the Weimar Republic in the beginning of the next regime. I have to be careful how I describe it because YouTube loves to get us for that. But of course, when the German dictator came on the scene, used the Enabling Act to essentially dissolve all political parties unto himself. I can see Mark Carney ruling by decree in this country. He's introducing bills that have great titles, but the insides are corrupt and toxic. And this is what he's after. Today he's going to announce Canada will achieve 2% of the GDP for defense spending. But where do you think that's going to go? It's going to go to Ukraine, and it's going to go to his European friends. It will not go to defend Canada. This is a charade. This is a farce. And I feel like the character at the beginning of the movie Gettysburg when he said, I know how this battle is going to end unless we take the high ground. It's going to be a tremendous defeat for the Union, and we have to take the high ground. And I can see the end of this movie. I can see the end of this play. And, just as an aside here, 100,000 Canadians left last year, largely for the United States, 50,000 alone from Ontario, because they know we're on the verge of disaster in this country. They're smart enough to know they got to get the hell out. And believe me, I was at an event last Sunday with Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore came to town with a comedy show. 25, 30 people came up to me and just to introduce themselves and say, we love your show. We see you on Redacted. Love what you're doing. But, we're leaving Canada. I couldn't believe so many people. And they were all very different walks in society. These were blue-collar workers, some of them middle class, some of them academics. But they all said, we're getting the hell out of Canada because we can see the doors closing behind us, in front of us right now, and it might be too late already, but we're getting out. And I think you were wise enough to do that. But I think the future for Canada looks very bleak. And I'm looking at if I can get out, because I don't know how much longer we have to have any kind of freedom in this country. It scares the hell out of me. But anyway, I put that out there.
I mean, and again, like I said with Justin, like Mark Carney is just a front man of the machine. And the challenge is the Conservatives aren't doing a thing either. And they're not wearing anything. This is why this is like, it's not that they're going to dissolve the opposition parties. They don't need to. The opposition party doesn't actually function as an opposition properly. There's a couple members that effectively do, but at large, they do not. They're part of the same program. Canada is no longer, we the people, it's we the party. It's the Liberal Party and the Conservative Party, and their interests, and they work together on those on these agenda points, that serve a larger global master as opposed to the Canadian people. So I still strongly believe that we need referendums in Canada. We need to reform our governance structure, and enable people in Canada to have a voice, because expecting the jailers to change the way that the jailing system works, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. They're not going to fix they're not going to fix the system that benefits them so much. They're
Well, on that very accurate and truthful note, I guess we'll say goodbye for now. But thank you for sharing all of this with us today. I hope a lot of you out there got something out of this. We're not telling you how to spend your money, how to invest your money, what to do with your money. We're telling you do something with your money, because we're headed towards a cashless society, a digital currency. We're headed for more authoritarian rule in Canada. And we need to look at options. And that's what this broadcast today was about. So thank you so much, Kyle. We love you here at Stand on Guard, and we'll have you back, and we'll keep talking, because I think you've got so much to offer. And I just love your analysis. So thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, David.
And we'll see you soon. Bye for now. So that was Kyle Kemper. No, he's not related to Mark Carney. I think he made that quite clear. Yes, he is related to Justin Trudeau, but he does not think like Justin Trudeau. So anyone who, a lot of insulting comments today. I'm disappointed. I'm very disappointed, because Kyle just comes on to share what he knows about things, and I think he knows a hell of a lot. And he's had a life experience that is very significant. So anyway, thank you all for watching. It's always a pleasure. Can't please you all every day. This was Kyle offered to talk about this day, and I said, yeah, you can come on the show anytime to talk about this, because you've been on before and people appreciate what you've said. So I hope we all learned something today. Maybe some of us didn't, but that's okay. I'll be back again tomorrow with Naomi Wolf. This is, yes, the Naomi Wolf who once worked for Al Gore, but Naomi Wolf, who is a champion of free speech and who fought the mandates and the lockdowns with a ferocity and a vigor that was singular. So Naomi will join me tomorrow for 30 minutes, and we'll be talking about a range of subjects. We might have to break in the middle for Rumble. And by the way, we are broadcasting henceforth on Rumble at the same time. So thank you. Thank you so much for watching today. We'll be back again tomorrow with all the news you need to know. And keep on fighting. God bless this country, and Godspeed to all of you.